The silence in the research lab was broken only by the soft hum of equipment. Deathworld moved his 6 arms with practiced ease, adjusting the sensors that monitored deep space signals. His large dark eyes reflected the blue glow of the displays. As numbers scrolled past in neat rows, the Zilani scientists had spent the last 3 cycles searching for interesting radio waves from distant stars. His people were natural explorers, but they preferred the safety of their well-built ships and careful planning, unlike some other species. The Zilani never rushed into dangerous situations. A sharp beep made Deathworld's head turn toward the communication panel. The sound meant an incoming signal, but this one was different. It was weak and broken, coming from a part of space where few dared to travel. "Computer, clean up the signal," Deathworld said in his soft voice. The machine worked for several moments before a crackling voice filled the room. The words were hard to understand, mixed with static and strange echoes. But what Deathworld heard made his skin turn pale blue with fear. "This is Kepler Station. Massive system failure. Unknown contacts. 847 souls aboard. ... Please ... anyone." The message cut to static. Hearts beating faster. Kepler Station was famous throughout the galaxy as a research center. Scientists from 12 different worlds worked there, studying the strange things that happened near dying stars. "Computer, locate source of transmission," he ordered. A star map appeared on the main screen. A red dot blinked in the middle of the Crimson Nebula, surrounded by warnings about radiation storms and gravitational problems. The area was marked in bright red letters that meant extreme danger. Deathworld called his captain immediately. Captain Zenka appeared on the screen, her silver hair flowing around her face like liquid metal. "Captain, we have received a distress call from Kepler Station," Deathworld reported. "The signal suggests major problems and possible loss of life." Captain Zenka's expression grew serious. "How many beings are at the station?" 847, according to the message. "Multiple species." The captain was quiet for a long moment. Deathworld could see her thinking, calculating the risks and possibilities like all good Zilani leaders did. "Our ship cannot reach them in time," she said finally. "The Crimson Nebula would take us 12 days to cross safely. By then ... She did not need to finish. Both of them knew that 12 days was far too long for any emergency rescue. The station's life support systems would fail long before help could arrive. "What about coalition forces?" Deathworld asked. "The nearest military ships are 3 weeks away." "Dealing with the peace talks at Centauri Prime," Captain Zenka replied. "We are alone out here." Deathworld looked back at his instruments. The distress signal was still coming through, weaker now, but still there. Somewhere in that deadly nebula, hundreds of beings were trapped and waiting for help that might never come. "Captain," he said slowly, "there is one possibility." "Oh, what do you mean?" Deathworld pointed to a different part of his display. Long-range sensors show a ship operating near the void reaches. The energy signature matches human technology. Captain Zenka's face showed surprise and something that might have been fear. "Humans? What are they doing in that area?" "Known, Captain, but they are the only ones close enough to help." The captain was quiet again. Neilnor knew what she was thinking. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans and their home world, Earth. The planet was classified as a Class 12 death world, covered with dangerous weather, deadly animals, and natural disasters that happened almost daily. The humans who came from that world were different from every other species in the Galactic Coalition. They did things that no sane being would attempt. They traveled at speeds that would terrify most pilots. They went to places that other species marked as impossible to visit. They seemed to enjoy taking risks that would give nightmares to careful species like the Zilani. "Contact them," Captain Zenka said at last. "It may be our only choice." Deathworld began working on his communication equipment. Finding the human ship was not difficult. Their engines put out energy signatures that could be detected from great distances. Most species tried to hide their presence in space, but humans seemed to announce themselves wherever they went. The reply came faster than the VO expected. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the HSV Defiant," a strong voice said through the speakers. "We received your transmission. Please repeat your message." That Vor had never spoken directly to a human before. Their voices were deeper than most species, and they talked much faster than seemed safe or reasonable. "Captain Morrison, this is research vessel Serenity's Edge. We have intercepted a distress call from Kepler Station. 847 beings are in danger, possibly trapped by unknown hostile forces." There was a pause that lasted only a few seconds. Among the Zilani, such a quick response would be considered reckless and dangerous. Important decisions required careful thought and planning. "Understood," Morrison replied. "It's transmitting coordinates and situation details now." Captain Morrison Deckfor said carefully, "You should know that Kepler Station is located deep within the Crimson Nebula. The radiation levels are extreme, and gravitational anomalies make navigation extremely hazardous." Another short pause. "Copy that. We're already plotting a course." Defiant out. The communication ended. Dekumer stared at his equipment, not quite believing what had just happened. The human captain had made his decision in less than 30 seconds. No discussion of risks, no careful planning, no requests for additional support or backup plans. "Captain?" Zenka appeared on his screen again. "Did they agree to help?" "Yes, Captain. They're already moving toward the nebula." "How fast are they traveling?" Dechivor checked his long-range sensors. The numbers that appeared made him check his instruments. "Twice." "Captain, according to my readings, they are moving at 0.8 light speed and accelerating." Captain Zenka's face showed the same disbelief that VOR felt. No Zilani ship had ever traveled faster than 0.4 light speed, and that was only in perfect conditions with careful preparation. "Are you certain of those readings?" "Yes, Captain. They are traveling through the void reaches at speeds that should be impossible in that environment." Both Zilani were quiet as they thought about what this meant. The void reaches were known for sudden radiation storms and space-time distortions. That could destroy a ship without warning. Most species avoided the area completely, but the humans were not just traveling through it. They were racing through it at dangerous speeds, heading straight toward an even more dangerous destination. Perhaps Captain Zenka said slowly, "This is why they call Earth a death world. The beings who survive such a place must think very differently than the rest of us." Deckvor nodded, still watching the display that showed the human ship moving like a bright star toward the Crimson Nebula. In a few hours, Captain Morrison and his crew would reach the most dangerous area of known space. They would face radiation that could kill most beings in minutes, gravitational forces that could tear ships apart, and whatever unknown threat had attacked Kepler Station, and they were doing it without hesitation, without backup, and without any guarantee that they would survive. "Computer," Lechfor said quietly, "monitor all communications from the Crimson Nebula. Record everything." If the humans succeeded in their impossible rescue mission, the galaxy would want to know how they did it. And if they failed, at least, someone would know that they had tried. The display showed the HSV Defiant disappearing into the edge of the nebula, carrying the hopes of 847 trapped beings into the deadly unknown. The bridge of the HSV Defiant looked nothing like the clean, peaceful ships that most species built. Warning lights flashed red and yellow across dark metal walls. Computer screens showed dozens of different readings, all changing too fast for most beings to follow. The air smelled of hot metal and electrical systems working at their limits, Captain. Jake Morrison stood in the center of it all, watching the main display as his ship raced toward the Crimson Nebula. His dark hair was already messy from running. His hands through it, a habit he had when making difficult decisions. "Danny, how are the engines holding up?" Morrison asked. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez looked up from his control panel. Sweat covered his face as he worked to keep the ship's systems running at dangerous speeds. "Engines are running hot, Captain, but they'll hold. I've got the power distribution balance and the cooling systems are working overtime." "Good, Lisa. What's our approach looking like?" Tactical Officer Lisa Barnes studied the sensor readings with the focus of a predator. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight, and her green eyes never stopped moving as she analyzed the data. "The nebula's outer edge is coming up fast. Radiation levels are already climbing. Most ships would need to slow down and raise full shields. Ships aren't built on Earth, Morrison replied. Amy, how's the crew? Dr. Amy Foster checked her medical display. She was the youngest member of the senior staff, but her medical training had prepared her for the kind of extreme conditions that human ships often faced. Everyone's fine so far. I've prepared radiation medicine for the crew and medical supplies. For potential survivors, a variety of alien species at Kepler Station makes this complicated, but I've got emergency protocols ready. Ryan, any more signals from the station? Communications Officer Ryan Kelly shook his head. His job was to keep the ship connected to the outside universe. But right now, that universe was becoming more dangerous every minute. Nothing clear, Captain? Just broken pieces of transmissions. But I'm picking up some strange interference patterns. It's not natural radiation. Morrison nodded. Keep monitoring everything. If there's anyone alive out there, we need to know. The ship suddenly shook as they hit the first wave of nebula radiation. Warning alarms began to sound, but the crew kept working without panic. This was what they had trained for. Entering the nebula now, Barnes reported. Radiation is increasing fast. Gravitational distortions detected ahead. On the main screen, space itself began to change. The normal black of deep space filled with swirling clouds of red and orange. Gas. Lightning storms that could destroy planets flashed between the gas clouds. Strange lights appeared and disappeared in patterns that hurt to watch for too long. Danny, adjust shield harmonics, Morrison ordered. Match them to the radiation. Frequency. Rodriguez's hands moved across his controls like a musician playing a complex song, shields adjusting, power levels holding steady. The ship shook again, harder this time. Most alien vessels would have been torn apart by now, but the Defiant was built differently. Human ships were designed to survive in conditions that would kill other species. Captain Barnes said, her voice tight with concentration, I'm reading massive gravitational waves ahead. They're coming in patterns that don't match natural phenomena. Morrison moved closer to look at her display. The readings showed waves of gravity moving through space like ocean waves, but stronger than anything a star should produce. How long until we reach the station? At current speed, 6 hours. But Captain, these gravity waves are getting stronger. If they continue to increase, even we might not be able to handle them. We'll handle them, Morrison said simply. We'll have to. Dr. Foster looked up from her medical station. Captain, I'm starting to get reports from the crew about strange dreams and headaches. It might be the radiation, but some of the symptoms are unusual. What kind of symptoms? Nightmares about impossible shapes. It's feelings that space is wrong somehow. A few crew members report seeing things that aren't there. Morrison and Barnes looked at each other. Both had enough combat experience to recognize when something was more dangerous than it appeared. Any ideas what could cause that? Morrison asked. Foster checked her medical database. Nothing in my files matches these symptoms exactly. It's like the crew is being exposed to something that affects the mind as well as the body. Kelly suddenly sat up straight at his station. Captain, I'm getting something. It's faint, but I think it's a transmission from Kepler Station. Put it through the speakers. Static filled the bridge, mixed with sounds that made everyone uncomfortable. Then a voice came through, speaking in the universal translation language that all coalition species used. Day 6 of the emergency. Something is wrong with the station's structure. Corridors are changing shape when no one is looking. Dr. Venese from Level 7 says the walls are moving by themselves. We've lost contact with Sections C and D completely. The transmission faded back to static. Then another voice came through. Experiments in Lab 12 have stopped responding to normal physics. Equipment is working, but the results make no sense. We've sent 3 teams to investigate. None have returned. More static, then a third voice, this one filled with terror. It's in the walls now. We can hear it moving between the decks. The emergency doors won't close properly. Some of them lead to places that weren't there before. Please, if anyone receives this, don't come here. Don't let it spread. The transmission ended in a burst of static that sounded almost like screaming. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Morrison's crew had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. This sounded like something that couldn't be fought with normal weapons or tactics. Captain Rodriguez said slowly, "Whatever's happening at that station, it doesn't sound like a normal emergency." "No, it doesn't," Morrison agreed. "But 800 people are still trapped there. We're not turning back." Barnes ran new calculations on her tactical display. If the station structure is actually changing, normal docking procedures might not work. We might need to cut our way in. Can the ship handle that kind of operation in this environment? Morrison asked. Rodriguez checked his engineering systems. The Defiant was built for extreme salvage operations. We can cut through station hulls if we have to. But working in this radiation, while dealing with gravitational distortions, will push everything to the limit. Dr. Foster prepared additional medical supplies. Captain, if we're dealing with something that affects minds as well as bodies, I need to prepare treatments for psychological trauma. Some alien species might not be able to handle exposure to whatever this is. Kelly continued monitoring communications. Picking up more fragments, Captain. References to impossible geometry and spaces that lead nowhere. Whatever happened at Kepler Station, it started in their experimental laboratories. Morrison studied the tactical display showing their approach to the station. The readings were getting stranger as they moved deeper into the nebula. Space itself seemed to bend and twist in ways that made the ship's sensors give contradictory information. "All right, people," Morrison said, his voice calm and steady. "We knew this wouldn't be a normal rescue mission. Whatever we find at Kepler Station, we deal with it the way humans always do. We adapt, we improvise, and we get the job done." Crew nodded, their faces showing determination instead of fear. This was what made human crews different from others in the galaxy. Where other species saw impossible odds, humans saw problems to solve. "Time to station?" Morrison asked. "For hours, 20 minutes, Barnes replied. "Good, everyone get some rest and check your equipment." "When we reach Kepler Station, we're going in ready for anything." The Defiant continued racing through the deadly nebula, carrying 5 humans toward a nightmare that had already driven hundreds of aliens to the edge of madness. Kepler Station appeared on the main screen like a metal nightmare floating in space. The research facility should have been a simple collection of connected modules and laboratories. Instead, it looked wrong in ways that made the human crews. Eyes hurt to focus on it, the station's hull twisted and curved in impossible directions. Sections that should have been straight bent back on themselves. Docking ports opened onto empty space or faced inward toward other parts of the station. Emergency lights blinked in patterns that seemed to spell out words in no known language. "What are we looking at?" Morrison asked, staring at the display. Barnes ran the sensor data through the ship's computers 3 times. "Changing, according to our instruments. The station is simultaneously 800 meters long and 2.3 kilometers long. The mass readings don't match the visual size. And Captain, some sections appear to exist in the same space at the same time." Rodriguez wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied his engineering displays. The power readings are impossible, too. Some parts of the station are drawing more energy than they contain. Other sections are producing power from nowhere. Dr. Foster checked her medical sensors. "I'm detecting life signs, but they're scattered in strange patterns. Some appear to be in areas that our instruments say don't exist. Others seemed to be moving through solid walls. Kelly adjusted his communication equipment. I'm picking up transmissions from inside the station, but they're coming from coordinates that don't match the station's structure. It's like people are talking from inside the walls themselves. Morrison studied the nightmare before them. Any sane species would have turned around and called for backup. But humans had evolved on a world where sane decisions often meant death. Sometimes the only way forward was through the impossible. We're going aboard, Morrison decided. Danny, can you get us docked to that thing? Rodriguez looked at his instruments with the expression of an engineer facing an impossible problem. The docking ports keep moving, Captain. I think I can. Match our ship's movement to theirs. It'll be rough, but the Defiant can handle it. Do it, Lisa, Amy. You're with me.
Orion.
You stay here and maintain communications. If we lose contact, send everything we've learned back to Coalition space. Kelly nodded. Understood, Captain. Good luck. 8. The docking process took 20 minutes of careful maneuvering. Rodriguez had to constantly adjust the ship's position as the station's docking port moved through space in ways that violated basic physics. When the connection finally locked, alarms went off throughout the Defiant. Hull breach in the docking tube, Rodriguez reported. No, wait. The breach is sealing itself. Now it's opening again. Captain, the station's hull is changing at the molecular level. Morrison, Barnes, and Dr. Foster put on their environmental suits and gathered their equipment. Morrison carried a standard human military rifle and backup power cells. Barnes brought demolition charges and sensor equipment. Foster carried medical supplies for 12 different alien species and emergency surgical tools. The docking tube felt wrong the moment they entered it. The walls rippled like liquid while remaining solid to the touch. Lights appeared and disappeared without any visible source. The gravity kept changing direction, making each step uncertain. Stay close together, Morrison ordered. Whatever's affecting this station, we don't want to get separated. They reached the station's airlock, which opened before they could touch the controls. The door slid apart to reveal a corridor that stretched further than the station's blueprints said was possible. Emergency lighting cast shadows that moved independently of their sources. According to the station plans, this corridor should be 30 meters long, Barnes said, checking her sensors. My readings say it's both 30 meters and infinite. They started walking down the corridor, their magnetic boots clicking against the deck plates. After 50 steps, they should have reached the main laboratory section. Instead, they found themselves in a storage area that the station blueprints didn't show. This room doesn't exist, Foster said, looking at her portable scanner. Standing in it, inside the storage area, they found their first survivors. 6 aliens from different species huddled together in the corner, their eyes wide with terror. Morrison recognized a Zilani researcher, 2 Altarian engineers, and 3 beings from species he couldn't identify. Dr. Foster immediately knelt beside them, her medical scanner checking their vital signs. They're alive but in severe shock. Trauma indicators are off the charts. Morrison approached the group carefully. We're here to help. We received your distress call. The Zilani researcher looked up with 4 terrified eyes. When she spoke, her voice shook so badly the words were hard to understand. You shouldn't have come. It's in the walls. It's in the air. It changes things. What changes things? Morrison asked. The experiment in Lab 12, Dr. Kane and his team were studying dimensional mathematics. They opened something. Now it's spreading. Through the station, Barnes checked her tactical sensors. Captain, I'm reading movement in the walls. Something large is traveling through the station's structure, but not through normal corridors. Morrison helped the survivors to their feet. We're getting you out of here. Can you walk? The Altarian engineers nodded, but one of them pointed toward a door that hadn't been there moments before. Don't go that way! That door leads to outside, but outside is inside now. Foster looked confused. What does that mean? Some doors open. Onto empty space, but you don't die from vacuum exposure. Instead, you fall up into other parts of the station. We lost 12 people that way. Morrison made a quick decision. Amy, get these people back to the ship. Lisa and I will continue searching for other survivors. Meet Captain splitting up might not be safe, Foster warned. Nothing about this is safe. But we can't rescue everyone if we move as one group. Take them to the docking tube and come back with more medical supplies. Foster began leading the survivors toward what they hoped was still the exit. Morrison and Barnes continued deeper into the station, following corridor maps that no longer matched reality. They found more survivors in what used to be the cafeteria. The room now had 3 different ceiling levels and stairs that led in impossible directions. 28 beings from various species sat around tables that were bolted to different walls. The food dispensers still work, explained a Regalian scientist with blue-scaled skin, but sometimes they produce food from other dimensions. We only eat things we recognize. Barnes set up a portable communication relay. Captain Morrison, to all survivors, we are human rescue personnel. If you can hear this message, make noise so we can find you. Sounds began coming from all over the station. Voices calling for help, banging on walls, even singing to identify their locations. But the sounds came from directions that made no sense. Some voices seemed to come from above their heads in rooms that had no upper level. Morrison studied his portable scanner. According to this, we have located 43 survivors so far, but the station records show 847 people were aboard. Maybe the others are in different parts of the station that we haven't reached. Yet, Barnes suggested, a new voice came through their communication system. It was human, speaking English with an American accent. This is Dr. Bill Kane. I'm trapped in Lab 12 with my research team. We caused this. We opened a door to somewhere else, and something came through. It's changing the station's geometry too. Match its own reality. Morrison activated his transmitter. Dr. Kane, this is Captain Morrison. What kind of something we don't know? It doesn't think like we do. It exists in more dimensions than we can see. When it tries to fit into our 3-dimensional space, reality bends around it. Barnes checked her sensors again. Captain, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from the laboratory section. Whatever Dr. Kane's team did, it's still active. Morrison looked at the impossible architecture surrounding them. The station was like a maze designed by someone who didn't understand how space was supposed to work. But humans had evolved to solve problems, even impossible ones. We're going to Lab 12, Morrison decided. If this thing came from there, maybe that's where we can send it back. The path to Lab 12 should have been a simple walk down 3 corridors and through 2 airlocks. Instead, Morrison and Barnes found themselves climbing through maintenance shafts that led sideways, walking across walls that had become floors, and stepping through doorways that opened onto the same room from different angles. Captain Barnes said, checking her compass for the 5th time. We've been walking north for 10 minutes, but my sensors say we're now south of where we started. Morrison studied the corridor ahead of them. The walls curved in ways that made his eyes water if he looked too long. The thing in Lab 12 isn't just changing the station structure, it's changing how space works. They passed through an airlock that opened onto a room they had visited 20 minutes earlier, except now it had a different ceiling, and the furniture was arranged upside down. 3 Altarian scientists sat calmly at a table that was mounted on what used to be the ceiling. Excuse me, Morrison called to them. How do we get to Lab 12? One of the Altarians pointed to a wall that had no door. Walk through there, turn left at the room that used to be Storage Bay 7, then follow the corridor that leads down to up. Barnes looked confused. Down to up? The gravity changes direction 3 times in that corridor, another Altarian explained. But if you keep walking in the same direction, you'll reach the laboratory section. Morrison and Barnes walked toward the wall the alien had indicated. As they got closer, a door appeared in the solid metal surface. It opened to reveal a corridor that sloped downward, but Morrison could feel that gravity was pulling him forward instead of down. This is impossible, Barnes muttered, as they walked on what felt like a wall. Impossible is just another word for something we haven't figured out yet, Morrison replied. Keep moving. The corridor led them through a series of rooms that defied every law of physics Morrison had learned in his military training. They passed through a laboratory where water flowed upward in perfect spheres, a storage room where the same box existed. In 6 different locations at once, a lounge area where the furniture was made of what looked like solid light, Finally, they reached a door marked Lab 12, Dimensional Research Division. Unlike the other doors they had encountered, this one looked normal except for the fact that it was covered in warning signs written in 12 different languages. Danger. Experimental portal active. Barnes read from one of the signs. Do not. Enter without level 9 clearance. Morrison tried the door handle. It was locked, but before he could reach for his cutting tools, the door opened by itself. Captain Morrison. A voice called from inside. Is that really you? They stepped into Lab 12 and immediately understood why the station had been twisted into impossible shapes. In the center of the room, a circular platform held what could only be described as a hole in reality itself. The portal was 3 meters wide and showed not empty space or another room, but something that hurt to look at. Directly beyond the portal, shapes moved that had too many angles or not enough dimensions. Colors that had no names shifted and flowed in patterns that made Morrison's brain ache. And something was trying to push its way through from the other side. Dr. Bill Kane stood near the portal controls, his brown hair messy and his clothes torn. Behind him, 5 other humans worked frantically at computer stations. Morrison was surprised to see that all of Dr. Kane's team were human. Most research stations used mixed species crews. Dr. Kane Morrison said, "We're here to get you out." Kane shook his head. "We can't leave. If we stop monitoring the portal, the entity will break through completely. Right now, we're barely holding it back." Morrison looked at the impossible. "Opening in space, what exactly are we dealing with?" "Call it the presence," Kane explained. "It exists in 11 dimensions while we can only see 3. When it tries to enter our reality, space has to bend and twist to accommodate it. That's why the station's geometry has gone crazy." Barnes checked her tactical sensors near the portal. The readings were so strange that her equipment kept shutting down and restarting. "How do we stop it?" "That's the problem," Kane said. "We opened this portal using careful mathematical equations and precise energy frequencies. The presence responded to our logical, orderly approach. Now it's trying to reshape our reality to match its own." Dr. Foster's voice came through their communication devices. "Captain, I've got 67 survivors safely aboard the Defiant, but I'm detecting massive energy buildup throughout the station. Whatever's happening in Lab 12, it's getting stronger." Morrison studied the portal and the strange readings on Kane's instruments. The entity on the other side was clearly intelligent, but it thought in ways that no 3-dimensional being could understand. "Dr. Kane, what happens if we just shut down the portal?" "We tried that," Kane replied. "The presence has already partially entered our reality. Its closing the portal now would trap part of it in our dimension permanently. It would continue changing space around itself until our entire reality becomes unlivable." Morrison thought about the problem from a military perspective. In combat, when facing an enemy that was too strong to fight directly, the solution was often to change the rules of engagement. "What if we don't try to stop it?" Morrison asked. "What if we make this environment so chaotic and unpredictable that it doesn't want to stay?" Kane looked confused. "I don't understand." Barnes caught on immediately.
"Captain."
"Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Morrison nodded. "The presence is attracted to order and logic. It's feeding on the station's careful systems and mathematical precision. But what if we take away all the order?" "That's insane," Kane said. "If we destabilize the station's systems, we could kill everyone aboard." "Dr. Kane," Morrison said calmly, "has anyone ever told you that humans are considered crazy by most galactic standards?" Morrison activated his communication device. "Danny, I need you to do something that's going to sound completely insane." Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. "I'm listening, Captain. I want you to create controlled system failures throughout the station. Overload the power grid, scramble the artificial gravity, create electromagnetic storms in the corridors. Make this place as chaotic and unpredictable as possible." There was a pause. "Captain, that could kill everyone on the station." "Danny, trust me. Can you do it?" "Give me 10 minutes," Rodriguez replied. "I'll turn that station into the kind of disaster that only humans could survive." Dr. Kane stared at Morrison in horror. "You're going to deliberately sabotage a space station while we're inside it. Dr. Kane, your careful, logical approach attracted this thing in the first place. Maybe it's time to try the human approach.
Out.
Where do you want these, Captain? Structural supports that aren't load-bearing? We want controlled chaos, not total destruction. Morrison looked at the portal where the presence continued trying to push its way into normal reality. The entity was intelligent, but it had never encountered a species that solved problems by making them more complicated. All right, people, Morrison announced, we're about to show this thing what happens when Deathworlders decide to renovate. The first system failure started in Section C when Rodriguez overloaded the main power coupling. Emergency lights began flashing in random patterns, while the artificial gravity switched directions every 30 seconds. The neat, orderly corridors of Kepler stations suddenly became a spinning nightmare of chaos. Beginning electromagnetic disruption, Rodriguez announced through the communication system. All personnel, brace for impact. Lightning storms erupted inside the station as electrical systems discharged their energy in wild patterns. The carefully controlled environment that the presence had been reshaping became a swirling mess of competing forces and unpredictable energy. In Lab 12, Morrison watched the portal with intense focus. The entity on the other side seemed confused by the sudden change. The ordered mathematical reality it had been entering was transforming into something random and violent. It's working, Dr. Kane said in amazement. The presence is pulling back from the portal. Captain, the station won't survive much more of this. Barnes detonated her first set of charges, creating controlled explosions that sent shockwaves through the station's structure. The neat geometric patterns that the entity had imposed on the corridors began to break apart. Danny, give me more. Power fluctuations, Morrison ordered. Make every system on this station work in ways it was never designed for. Copy that, Captain. Initiating cascade failures throughout the environmental systems. The air recycling units began producing windstorms inside enclosed spaces. The heating system created pockets of extreme temperature that shifted randomly, from freezing cold to burning hot. Water systems sprayed jets of liquid in directions that defied gravity. Dr. Foster's voice came through the communication system with barely controlled panic. Captain, the survivors are terrified. Some of them think we're trying to kill everyone? Tell them to trust us, Morrison replied, and prepare the ship for emergency departure. We might need to leave fast. The station shook as Rodriguez overloaded the main reactor containment system. It's not enough to cause an explosion, but enough to create energy discharges that turn the station into a localized electromagnetic storm. Morrison could see the effect on the portal immediately. The presence was withdrawing from three-dimensional space. It's unable to maintain its hold on reality while dealing with such aggressive unpredictability. More chaos, Morrison ordered. Lisa, detonate the rest of your charges. What? Barnes triggered explosions. Throughout the laboratory section, the blasts were carefully placed to create maximum disruption without destroying vital life support systems. But the noise and vibration turned the station into a metal earthquake. The portal began to shrink. As the presence retreated, but Morrison realized they had a new problem. The entity was withdrawing so quickly that it might close the dimensional opening while still partially in their reality. Hey, Dr. Kane, if that portal closes with part of the presence still in our dimension, what happens? Kane checked his instruments with shaking hands. The trapped portion would eventually break free and probably tear a permanent hole between dimensions. The damage could spread to other star systems. Morrison made a split-second decision that would have seemed insane to any rational being. Danny, I need you to destabilize the portal itself. Hit it with every kind of energy discharge you can create. Captain, that could destroy the entire station. Do it anyway. Rodriguez sent massive power surges through the station's electrical grid, all focused on Lab 12. The portal began to fluctuate wildly as competing energy fields tore at the dimensional opening. The presence seemed to realize that this chaotic environment was too dangerous and unpredictable for its ordered existence. Morrison watched through the shrinking portal as the entity retreated completely into its own 11-dimensional reality. It's pulling back, Kane announced. The portal is destabilizing, but the presence is withdrawing completely. Barnes triggered her final set of charges, creating one last wave of controlled destruction that sent shockwaves through the station's twisted corridors. The impossible geometry that the entity had created began to snap back toward normal three-dimensional space. "All hands, prepare for reality shock," Morrison announced. "This is going to hurt." The station convulsed as 11-dimensional space collapsed back into 3 dimensions. Corridors that had been bent into impossible shapes straightened with metallic screams. Rooms that had existed in multiple locations simultaneously snapped back to single positions. Morrison felt reality reassert itself around him like a rubber band snapping back to its original shape. His inner ear told him that up and down had returned to their normal meanings. The walls were solid again, instead of flowing like liquid. The portal collapsed with a sound like thunder inside a metal box, where the dimensional opening had been. Only normal space remained. The entity was gone, returned to whatever impossible realm it had come from. "Status report," Morrison called as the station's emergency lighting began to work normally again. "All survivors accounted for," Dr. Foster reported. "We have minor injuries from the chaos, but everyone is alive." "The alien survivors are amazed that your plan actually worked." Rodriguez checked the station's systems. "Main power is restored. Artificial gravity is stable. The geometric distortions are gone. But the station has taken serious structural damage. It won't be safe for long-term habitation." Barnes surveyed the laboratory. "The portal controls are completely destroyed, Captain. There's no way to accidentally reopen that dimensional gateway." Dr. Kane stared at the space where the portal had been. "I can't believe that worked. You deliberately created a disaster zone to scare away a cosmic entity." "Sometimes the best way to handle an impossible situation is to make it even more impossible," Morrison replied. "Are you and your team ready for evacuation?" Kane nodded. "More than ready. I don't think any of us want to work with dimensional mathematics for a while." The evacuation of Kepler Station took 6 hours. Morrison's crew worked efficiently to transfer 847 survivors of 12 different species to the Defiant's expanded cargo base. Dr. Foster coordinated medical care for beings whose biology she had never studied before, treating everything from radiation exposure to psychological trauma. During the journey back to Coalition space, Morrison found himself in the ship's observation lounge with some of the alien survivors. They looked at him with expressions of amazement and something that might have been fear. "Captain Morrison," said Deathworld, the Zilani scientist who had first contacted the humans, "your species approaches danger in ways that no other beings would consider. You saved us by doing things that should have killed everyone." Out at the stars, as they traveled through normal space, "We learned a long time ago that sometimes the only way out is through. Earth taught us that survival means being willing to take risks that seem crazy to others." Dr. Kane joined them in the observation lounge. "The Galactic Coalition is going to want a full report on what happened. How do we explain that humans defeated a cosmic horror by deliberately sabotaging a space station?" "We tell them the truth," Morrison said. "Sometimes the impossible requires impossible solutions." When the Defiant reached Coalition Space 3, days later, news of the rescue had already spread throughout the galaxy. The story of humans racing into deadly nebulae to save alien lives became legend before Morrison could file his official report. That four became an advocate for human involvement in Coalition crisis response operations. His detailed account of human capabilities in extreme situations changed how the galaxy viewed Earth's Deathworld survivors. Morrison received new orders a week after returning to port. Instead of routine patrol duty, he was assigned to command the Coalition's first dedicated emergency response team. His crew volunteered immediately, understanding that they had found their true purpose in the galaxy. The distress call that had echoed through space had become something is more than a cry for help. It had become proof that when the universe presented impossible problems, Deathworlders would provide impossible solutions.